Hey there, comic fam. Welcome back to Climbing Comics. In today's sesh, we'll be chatting about the first appearance of Shang-Chi. Hey there again, comic fam. Welcome back to Climbing Comics. In today's sesh, I wanted to start working on my 2021 goals in terms of reading and trying to explain a little bit more about, I guess, lesser known characters. My first choice for this year is Shang-Chi. He may not be the most minor character anymore because Marvel, the MCU, is going to be doing a movie this year. It's called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The reason I'm so excited about this is because I really like the actor who's playing Shang-Chi, Simu Liu. So I first saw him on a Netflix show called Kim's Convenience. So I really like that show. So definitely put a picture up here. Check it out. It's a fun watch. But after that, I kind of started following him and hearing that he was cast as Shang-Chi. I was really excited. So I wanted to see if I wanted to obtain his first appearance in the Marvel comics, as well as read and understand a little bit more about his backstory. So let's start it off by giving you a little bit of info and kind of giving you a little bit of background about the sign of the times of when the book was made. So Shang-Chi's first appearance was in Marvel Special Edition number 15, coming out in December 1973, by Steve Englehart as the writer, and the inker was Jim Starlin. So this was definitely a show of the sign of the times. I think if you were to release a book like this today, it would not be very PC. Mainly because there were little snippets of, let me give you an example. Shang-Chi's father's name is Fu Manchu. And I guess I would say I don't think it would pass through the editor if it gone through the colorist as they did it back in 1973. So you'll kind of see a little bit in the pictures, some disclaimer here. This is not how this should be today in terms of what's politically correct out there. But, I just want to give you a little bit of background as to Shang-Chi in 1973. Let's jump straight into the story. So you start off the first page, giving a picture of Shang-Chi himself and his father, Fu Manchu. So in this, you kind of get the idea of like what kind of character he is, right? So he's in like this martial arts garb, and you see his father in the back, kind of with that kind of evil looking face. So it's kind of interesting because in the background, you see that they have a very similar window that Doctor Strange has. I believe that, like in the Sanctum Sanctorum, I believe the name of the window is the Seal of Vishali. So that's kind of interesting because I need to read further on to see if this kind of ties in anywhere. So the story first starts with Shang-Chi fighting 5 different, I guess, bad guys, martial artists. There's a sumo wrestler. There's a guy with a samurai sword. There's a guy with metal arms and legs. And there's another guy that just like kind of has a sword. So I really like how this starts off because in the first panel, it basically says, a tale must begin somewhere, but not always at the beginning. And then you kind of see him fighting. So you kind of see him jumping around, kind of ducking kicks and ducking like sword attacks and whatnot. And so he's one by one taking down these 5 different foes. And then you start seeing little panels or interstitial, like between the panels, like pictures of his father. So you see these 5 guys saying, hey, Shang-Chi, you will never get to our master. And then Shang-Chi is like, you don't know who I am. I'm actually his son. Then you kind of have a flashback, essentially, of Shang-Chi kneeling before his father, saying that I will do your bidding. Thank you for training me. And then you essentially have one page telling you about Shang-Chi's history. So he's 19 years old. He was trained in this Honan retreat. And he is, in 2 panels, they basically says that he is one of the world's best intellects at this point. You are a living weapon. Essentially, you have mastered martial arts as mastered your mind. So this is pretty cool. And his father essentially says, now it's time for you to go out and do my bidding. There is one man out there who has tried to foil my plans to save this planet. So he's definitely feeding him some stuff out here that is not true. So Shang-Chi reluctantly kind of goes out and is like, I'm going to do my father's bidding. I know in all the philosophy books that I've read, it tells me killing another man is not good, but if it's for the right, I have to do it. So you see him sneak into this guy's house, and you see this feeble old man laying in bed. So you see that this guy is about 90 years old. So his name is Dr. Petrie, and as you see Shang-Chi kind of come up towards his bed, he opens his eyes and looks up, and essentially in like one foul swoop, he basically kills him, like in just like one karate chop, essentially. So as Shang-Chi tries to sneak out the window, you see this other guy, kind of old man also, kind of roll in, but he has a gun this time, and he has it towards Shang-Chi, and he's like, I'm Sir Dennis Nayland Smith. How can you do this to Mr. Petrie? Stop there. And then, you know, there's kind of some racial epithets here that are kind of thrown out. But, you know, if you want to read it, definitely feel free to read it. But what you see is the guy kind of flinches and kind of pauses for a quick second. And in that quick second, Shang-Chi just kicks the gun out of his hands. And then so he's like, you must be some sort of new servant for him. Shang-Chi is like, I am his son. And then so in the background, you kind of see Sir Nayland Smith start crying. And you see Shang-Chi peering in from the window saying, why is this guy crying for such an evil man, Mr. Petrie? And then so you kind of hear Nayland Smith start talking about the history of himself with Shang-Chi's father. So Shang-Chi's father, they kind of ran into each other in Burma. They heard about this man who was a super intellectual. He essentially was as smart as three geniuses. He was like kind of dabbling in some dark arts. He was like, he had his fingers everywhere in government, in crime. He was experimenting and creating monsters out of like rodents and spiders and whatnot. And he essentially found out that Shang-Chi's father found the elixir vitae. So essentially, like, he found the way to stay alive forever, essentially. And what he wanted to do is take over China, take over Asia, and then the world. And Mr. Petrie and this guy foiled his plans, and he was like really mad. So essentially, he said, you want to know the truth about your father? Let me show you my leg. And then he shows him his leg, and this guy, his leg is like all distorted and stuff. And he's like, what happened? He tells Shang-Chi that one of his father's, like, you know, the sumo guy, Kai, essentially like just crumbled his leg and made his bones into glue. It was really nasty. You should check out this page. I'll show a picture here. Next thing that Shang-Chi does is that he goes to his mother to find out what is going on here. Then you see Shang-Chi just slam open a door, and he's like, mother. And she's essentially, like, it's weird. She's holding this like cage of a canary, and he's like, is this true? Is what all of these guys say about my father true? And how could she marry such a man if that was the case? So this is kind of weird, because she essentially says, Shang, he chose me, selected me from everyone in the world, chose a scientifically perfect mother to his child. So essentially he wanted, she essentially, you know, was not super attracted to Shang-Chi's father or really into him, but she was into power. She essentially wanted a son that would be king. And then you see Shang-Chi put his hand to his head, and I am he, your son. And so essentially you cut back into the current time. So he starts fighting the sumo wrestler, right? And then he's like, Kai, I know it's you. And then the sumo's like, how do you know my name? And he's like, I know who Dennis Nayland Smith is, Sir Dennis Nayland Smith. So then you see him snarl, and they start fighting. There's this whole page and this whole panel of, I think it may not be, like, they look like Chinese characters, but I have to find out what they actually say. And so you kind of see him grab his ponytail, throw him through this door, and through that door, Shang-Chi finds his father's like laboratory. And of course, it's like one of those laboratories that has like green bubbly things growing. There's skulls, there's rats and whatnot. And then all of a sudden in the background, like this huge gorilla comes out of nowhere, this huge hairy gorilla, and they start fighting, getting at it. And then so fortunately, like they're tussling, and then there's like this cauldron of fire next to him, and Shang-Chi like kicks it, it gets on the gorilla's like hair, and he's inflamed and starts running away. And at that same time, Shang-Chi hears in the background, "Excellent, Shang-Chi." And then you basically, that's what I think his father sounds like. So he essentially says that no violence between two members of the Manchu dynasty will happen tonight, Shang-Chi. So I guess they're from the Manchu dynasty. So he essentially says that I was mad that these guys ruined my plans. That's why I did what I did to them. It took me 20 years to regain all of this power. What are you doing? Do you stand against your father? So he essentially says, yes, he is. Father, you speak with absolute assurance, completely convinced that your vision is the only proper way. And like all men who speak thus, you are mad. So his father, as he walks away, says, when next we meet, it will be as implacable enemies. So essentially you see his father kind of just disappear into the background. It's kind of crazy. Shang-Chi opens the door. For some reason, of course, he's in downtown New York, and shirt off, just walking in the middle of the street. So he basically says, I am happy that I've divorced myself from evil. I didn't lose just an empire of what all my father had. I've also lost my dad. So in the end, he's like, and in all the world, I can never find another. I kind of like this book for a first appearance because it is kind of like a pilot episode of a show. So you kind of get your characters, you get their plot, their storyline, where they are, how they got there. And I wonder what they're going to do in the Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings, because of course you can't use a lot of the things that they use in this book because they're not appropriate. I don't know what they're going to do, but they have a lot of good actors and actresses in this movie. They have Simu, they have Tony Leung, they have Michelle Yeoh, Ronnie Chung. Man, they have a lot of good actors and actresses in this movie, so they could do a lot. I think this is going to be a pretty good movie, and I'm really glad that I read this book, and I'm glad I actually have it in my collection. So let me ask you, what are your thoughts on Shang-Chi? Are you excited about the movie? Do you want to see it? Are you excited about Simu acting as the main character? Or have you even read this book or any other books of minor characters? Definitely put that in the comment section below, because I'd like to hear of what I should read next. So if you like this content, definitely please click that thumbs up button, subscribe if you like it, and click that bell icon to notify you of when I come out with new content. So essentially, from my comic journey to yours, make it your own. Thanks all. Bye.